Now, so with this brief, overview, so whatever the open cloud architecture, whatever we saw in the previous class, I am taking you guys to the open cloud architecture. VMware cloud architecture. When it comes to the VMware cloud architecture, so by now, so in the previous topics, like in the first module where we saw the concept of virtualization, how the VMs can be created, what is the role, how the hypervisors can play the role in creating the virtual environment, all that. Now actually we are trying to combine the two different atmospheres right here. One is the VMware related services with that enhanced service of cloud. How best we can bring out this? That is the concept right now, which is VMware cloud architecture. If you ask me here, that's what we say here is that Open Nebula, which acts like a brain, whereas VMware, obviously, it is the virtualization engine. That is where we are trying to combine the two items. One is the VMware, the other one is the cloud. For you to provide the cloud services and in the virtualization environment. So it is one solution is by using the OpenAbula. That's what this line says, that OpenAbula acts like a brain, which is cloud brain. Whereas VMware, obviously, it is for providing the virtualization environment itself, right? So that is what we said. So about the architecture, obviously, we has a OpenAbula. For what? For that to manage the entire cloud administration record as cloud orchestration in the VMware cloud. So that's what we said, that OpenAbula, what it does in the sense, it does the cloud orchestration in the that will be taken care by the OpenAbula. Whereas obviously you have VMware vCenter. What it will be doing in the sense, it will be managing your virtualization. Obviously it will be handling your virtualization backend. So when I say virtualization, in the sense, there are different operations of your virtualization. Few such like vMotion for moving the VM from one hypervisor to the other hypervisor, for balancing the load, again high availability, again you have DRS, which is for resource scheduler, right? So all these virtualization related activities will be managed by whom? It is by the vCenter. As you want to give the flavor of the cloud, the OpenAbula, which will manages the, or which will be taking care of the cloud orchestration, right? So that is how it is, the two different entities which will be performing their own tasks. So in combining, we are calling it as a VMware cloud architecture. Why is this required? Why, if you ask me, like, why do we want to think of such kind of OpenAbula for providing any kind of cloud process, in the sense, generally speaking, guys, so already example, you understand, you are the one who have enterprise, so you are already utilizing the VMware services. You already have the VMware infrastructure. You already purchased the VMware licenses, so you are already using the VMware, as simple as. Now, as you are already using the VMware, you wanted to use the cloud services also. I repeat, you wanted to use the cloud services also. At that time, just for the sake of using the cloud services, you know you, and at the same time you wanted to continue the services of the VMware as well. In such case, instead of you leave the entire VMware platform and switch over to the other one, is there any solution that can give you the possibility of you to continue the virtual VMware services and also think of using the cloud services? For that, one solution is OpenAbula. That's what, like, OpenAbula itself will add the a cloud-like layer for what? For provisioning and managing the cloud orchestration, and it will support the multi-tenancy, which is your so-called feature of your cloud, and it also enables the hybrid cloud. Like that, with the available, see, if you are the enterprise, if you are owning the enterprise, if you want the service, if you are already using the services of VMware, now, if you want to use the flavor of the cloud, what you have to do in the sense, just you need to use the cloud architecture or cloud orchestration with the VMware. That is what we say here as a, that is a topic which we are discussing, which is VMware cloud architecture. When you talk about the VMware cloud architecture, what are the different components, core components you have? In the sense, obviously you have a front end, which what it will be doing. Let's say in the front end, what runs means obviously it is the open nebula services are will be running. It is the open nebula services will be running at the front end, and you have a hypervisor enabled host which will be taken care by whom? Which will be taken care by the VMware vCenter. So you have a what? Hypervisor enabled. So this is what one such hypervisor by the VMware, which is ESX. ESX is the hypervisor provided by the VMware. So this is where ESX hypervisors are running. About those hypervisors only, where you might have created n number of virtual machines based on the available resources, right? You have a data stores. Those data stores to in order to store the VM images, virtual machine images, and also disk files. All those are stored in the data store. And obviously, to connect every item, you need the physical network. So, which is as simple as for connecting and communication purpose. For that's what, for intercommunication purpose, you need the networking. So, like this, if you ask me how there are four core components in the VMware cloud architecture. Those are front end, hypervisor enabled host, data store, and the network. Looking after each item at a time, if you ask, like as I mentioned, front end is the one which will be running your open nebula services. All your open nebula services will be running at the front end, which is nothing else than cloud management and cloud orchestration. So only that we let's say that open nebula, as it will be, as the open nebula services are running at the front end, let me call it as just like a it just like a cloud manager, which is managing the entire cloud services with your VMware. Next, we have a vCenter. So you have a vCenter instances. So that vCenter drivers, you may say it as, which will be acting like a supervisor, which is taking care of the different vCenters. So you have a different vCenters. Yeah, in every vCenter, you may be having multiple hypervisors like ESX. You may be having multiple hypervisors in every vCenter, which is forming like a cluster, which is forming like a cluster. On every hypervisor, you may be having multiple VMs. All those you may call it as individual clusters. So likewise, you'll be having a vCenter instance and also ESX, which is the hypervisors. Above this ESXi or ESX itself, the different virtual machines will be running. Those are the one who will be actually performing the task for you. Like this, there are three entities, which is front end, vCenter instances, and the ESX hypervisors. Now to connect all these three, where you need the network. To connect all these three, you need a network. How are you connecting? You are connecting the front end to the vCenter. At the same time, you are connecting the front end to the ESX. When I say that you are connecting the front end, what is at the front end? It is nothing else than the open nebula. What is running at the front end? It is nothing else other than the open nebula. Now you, for connecting that open nebula to the vCenter and connecting such kind of open nebula to the ESX where the VMs are running. To connect this, how exactly that vCenter can be integrated? vCenter can be integrated in the sense, that's what we say that between the open nebula and the VMware, that's what this virtual machines. Where are the virtual machines? Virtual machines are above on this ESX. What is ESX? It is a hypervisor. Above this hypervisor, you have a VMs, virtual machines. This virtual machine and the open nebula can be communicated through the vCenter. Through the vCenter. So only we say that the vCenter will be acting like a intermediate between the open nebula, which is the front end, and the VM, which is virtual machines which are running on the ESX. Whereas every as we say that every vCenter may have multiple ESX hypervisors, making just like a cluster, right? All those are acting like a cluster, and OpenNebula will be scheduling a respective task at the cluster level, whereas it is the vCenter's duty to make sure that which resource has to be scheduled to what what service. So only So if you ask me the scheduling workflow, it is the front end part is what? OpenNebula, which is assigning the respective task, and based on that task, which VM can take up and what resources are required, that will schedule by whom? It is the vCenters, because vCenter itself is that's what virtual machines. vCenter which already have a service which you call as DRS, which is distributed resource scheduler, that actually chooses in order to do this task which ESXi is applicable, or which ESX and which VM is compatible. That decision will be taken care by the vCenter, and the respective resources will be allocated. That is what we let. If you ask me the how the workflow will happen between the OpenNebula to the VM where actually tasks are happening. So I am just repeating. So there are four core components here. One is the front center. The next is the ESX, which is the hypervisor, and which also has the data stores in it. At the same time, to connect every item, we have a network. So as we say that OpenNebula is the front end, which actually has a task to assign. So, but which task will be assigned to which VM? That is not part of the OpenNebula. That is the role of your vCenter. It is a vCenter who does that job of thinking or deciding which task has to be assigned to the which VM, because vCenter already has a functionality what you call it as DRS, which is distributed resource scheduler, which actually chooses which ESX host and which data store which will be suitable for what VM to perform what task, right? So that will be taken care by the vCenter. Now, when it comes to the dimensioning the cloud, so even in the last topic, which is the open cloud architecture, also we saw dimensioning the cloud. Dimensioning the cloud dimensioning or dimensioning cloud is nothing else than the making sure that you plan the you have to carefully plan the computational resources to build your respective enterprise cloud. So for that, what are your plannings? That is what the topic, which is dimensioning cloud. Now when you're speaking about the VMware cloud, so to do so, what are the requirements? What are the requirements? As we just saw in the previous slide, you need the front end handling, which is OpenNebula, like OpenNebula. At the same time, it is the ESX, which will be making sure that above which VMs are running. At the same time, whenever you are trying to plan, that's what planning. So one must have awareness about this over provisioning and under provisioning. At any point of time, you should not allocate the n number of resources maximum or more than what is required, which leads to the over provisioning. At the same time, under provisioning, like you should not also allocate the very less resources where there are more resources are required. So whenever you are trying to plan, that's what the term I let me highlight. That's what dimensioning the cloud. Whenever you are trying to plan, you should be very careful about this. Now, whenever you think of, you say that you are planning, you are doing that, that's what dimensioning. Whenever you think of plan, what do you need to do first in the sense? Obviously, you need to know the cloud size. One should know the cloud size. What size you wanted to create. Whenever you think of creating your own cloud premises, what is the size? What is the cloud size? That cloud size is entirely based on the VM workload. So your cloud infrastructure is depending on the VM workload. When I say that VM workload, in the sense, it is entirely based on the task assignment. So at that time, you must make sure that there should not be resources are underutilized. At the same time, the resources should not be overutilized as well. So one should have the clarity on the cloud size. Next, as we say that the front end, you need to know about the front end. And also we just said in the previous slide, front end for your VMware cloud is nothing else than the OpenNebula. Now, for you to install that OpenNebula and set up that OpenNebula, what is the minimum requirements you want to with respect to the VMware. In the sense, obviously, this also again we discussed about this in the last topic as well. So you need to have minimum of 2 GB RAM, right? So where CPU can be 2 cores and disk space, hard disk space must be 100 GB and network and 2 NICs. So there is a very minimal requirements to you to create, I must say, install and start using the OpenNebula with the VMware. But by using, whenever you set up this OpenNebula as a front end in the VMware cloud, if you set up the OpenNebula with this minimal requirements or minimal configuration, up to what workload it can take up, in the sense it can take up to 4 vCenters. As we said in the previous slide itself, here we mentioned, right? Front end is what? OpenNebula, and you have vCenters, and also you have the ESX hypervisors. Above the hypervisor only VMs you are running. Now, as you wanted to have an interaction between the OpenNebula, which will be assigning the respective tasks. So how many vCenters it can handle, in the sense it can handle up to 4 vCenters. This minimal OpenNebula, whatever infrastructure, whatever you have created, this can handle up to 4 virtual vCenters. It can handle up to 40 ESX 40 ESX hosts per vCenter. As I mentioned, you have 4 vCenters. Per vCenter 40 ESX means in total it is 40 into 4. Those many ESX it can handle, because 4 vCenters and 40 ESX per vCenter. So those many ESX it can handle. Then up to how many VMs can be there per you say I must say in total it is 1000. So maximum to 250 VMs per vCenter. So only it is 250 into 4 is 1000. So likewise, maximum 4 vCenters, almost 160 ESX, and almost 1000 VMs this OpenNebula can take up. That is the minimal requirements we require for the front end OpenNebula, and which can take up what load, means this is the minimal load it can handle. Now, so when you jump inside, when you talk about the ESX nodes, which is nothing else than the computation hypervisors. Now, for you to plan the ESX nodes, which is the hypervisors, what you have to do as a planning, as we are talking about dimension in the cloud, as a part of planning. So, what is the CPU plan you want for the ESX hypervisors means? So, you need to have either that's what we said, the with over commitment and without over commitment. That's what. So either you allocate the resources statically or dynamically, whether you want to change. So there we say that at least 1 core, usually 2 cores is ideals. That is what here you can see. So if at all, if you want to run 40 VMs for every 2 CPU, for every VM you want to allocate 2 core, then you need to have 80 cores on your ESX. It's only we say that it is entirely based on the load which it is going to take up. Similarly, the memory also, it is entirely based on the load, but usually, so you need to have additional 10% additional. So it is, instead of you have it the your requirement and allocation exactly same, you can have extra almost 10% of your hypervisor on your hypervisor. Then when it comes to the storage, yeah, as we say that storage is something like bottleneck, which can be how much ever you allocate. So it is, you will get to know only at the time of processing only. I would say at the time of task performance or operation, at the time only you will get to know how much it will be full or not. So but still you need to have that storage which is based on the requirement. Then it is again, obviously you need to have a network planning. So for what? For you to connect the front end with the vCenter, and in the vCenter again, on the vCenter you have a ESX. Above the ESX you have virtual machines, so you need to connect those virtual machines as well. So only we say that whenever you wanted to what, connect the front end, so ideally having the 2 NICs is ideal. Whereas if you want to deal with each and every ESX host, then having 4 NICs is ideal, right? So like that, you need to have a plan. So how much CPU is required, how much memory is required, how much storage is required, how much network is required. So one should have a plan whenever you are thinking of designing the cloud, right? So now, whenever you talk about this OpenEBOLA VMware cloud architecture, so obviously it has a monitoring system. This again we saw in the previous topic as well as a open cloud also we discussed. So monitoring system obviously for what, in the sense it will be making sure I monitoring the cloud health, right? It will be monitoring the cloud health. Whenever you talk about cloud health, in the sense it is nothing else than monitoring the host, which is the where the hypervisor is mounted. So and also the virtual machine status, so it will be keep on monitoring, right? So every cloud administrator you talk about will be keep on monitoring this kind of cloud performance. So that in turn it is also depending on the virtualization host. That's what you mean. It can be the vCenter, how the communication can happen with between the OpenEBOLA and the vCenter, and how best your vCenter can respond back. So that is also depending. That again it executing all the VM lifecycle. That is what start from creating the VM, suspending, migrating, or terminating such kind of VMs which are not at all useful, right? So again connecting those, right? That is so connecting those. That's what virtual network. So all these which make sure that your performance of your virtual cloud is increasing. At the same time, so here again one more thing which we need to highlight is that, which is failover protection. See, basically as you are talking about this a virtual network or virtual environment, so making sure that failure system, I mean say, you can you guarantee that there will not be any failures? In the sense, you can't guarantee it. So it is made to be, or it is meant to be failures, but how best you can recover them, and how best you can make sure that your services are available for the end users. So that's what, so your vCenter has this one more very good failure protection system, right? That's what we say, that high availability. Next, as we say that storage, very minimal, requirement. So when it comes to the, whenever you want to integrate with the vCenter, so one should, have this, clarity on, how much resources you want to allocate. So one such resources is this storage as well, right? So again, this is one, command what you might have used. So which is scheduling DS requirements. So that is the one which will be where you will be scheduling the respective resources based on the available resources in the data store. So that again one option at your vCenter, which is in turn can be handled from the front end like OpenEBOLA. Next is networking. So yeah, as already we mentioned in the one of the previous slide, so you need to have a very standard network for to connect the other core components like the OpenEBOLA, vCenter, and the ESX. That is one. Other thing is that building the network between the VMs above the ESX. That is also important. So it is not just about connecting the OpenEBOLA with the vCenter. You must also think of connecting the VMs above the ESX together. So that is also where part of your networking. Again, whenever you think of creating such kind of virtual network, you call it as in your virtual environment. So like you can range your address range. You can think of, basically we do connect by using a MAC address, even IPv4, or even in case of IPv6 ranges also it supports. Then, what are the different authentication mechanisms your VMware Cloud Architecture supports? That's what OpenEBOLA VMware Cloud will supports, in the sense, which is very basic, well-known one is username password authentication mechanism. It supports again SSH. It is entirely based on the command line based, access control mechanism, which is SSH based. Again, certificate based. So all those certificates. X5.509, so which has a different fields in it. Every fields are updated, and every certificate has a lifespan. So certificate based authentication also it supports. Again, LDAP. So this again, whenever we are thinking of the enterprise related, so in such case majorly we'll be using this what LDAP. So it is not just about the username password. So like that, different kind of authentication mechanisms it allows. And also this again advanced features away we saw in the open cloud architecture. Similarly, the open VMware cloud architecture also has the advanced features like one flow, which is for managing the multi VMs and orchestration. Then again, you have a cloud bursting, where if at all if you want to, you have your own private cloud, but if you want to expand that and combine with the other cloud service providers like AWS or Azure, in such case can you extend? Is it something like you want to create a new system in the AWS? This is not required. Whatever the cloud atmosphere you have in your private, that can be directly enhanced with the other cloud service providers like private AWS or Azure. You don't have to start from the scratch again. That's what cloud bursting is possible. Again, cloud interface, that's what we need to say. For doing the cloud bursting, you can, is there a possibility to interface with the multiple clouds? Yes, it is. There is a possibility. Again, we have one gate. So when it is major, it is for monitoring and analysis purpose. You have a one gate. Like this, the different features we have in the VMware architecture. You have vCenters, and each vCenter will have multiple ESX, which are the multiple VMs. This set of ESX environment, which we are calling it as a cluster. Such kind of multiple clusters can be at the data centers, and those data centers need not be, I repeat, those data centers need not to be centralized always. They can be distributed across. When you say that they are distributed across, how we can provide the better services? That is what I'm talking about. Multi data center, and also very importantly the federation mechanism. Right, that's what we say, that multi data centers allows the centralized and also federated cloud management. It is not always, you need to think of what centralized. So it can also be federated across. Sharing can be taken care by whom? It is again by your vCenter alone can take up that. That is what we say, that vCenter orchestration it itself has already this is the service which are already available. So for you to do the communication among the multiple data centers, it will be openable, which will be communicating through this one of the API, which is SOAP API, right? So which will allow you to provide the communication between the OpenAbula with any of the data center. And in the respective data center, there are different kind of clusters like this. In a data center, you have a different clusters. All those are handled in the data store. So whenever we say that as they are federation or isolated, or we meant to say distributed domains, in such case, where you need to think of inter data center communication, inter data center. See, this is different. What we say, that distributed domain. This is different data center. These are the two different data centers. In such case, also one should have the proper communication. So only for that. So can I, first of all, can I have, in the sense, definitely we can have. So basically, we have to do so, where we have such kind of web interface. One such web interface we call a Sunstone. Sunstone is one such web interface you can use for such kind of interfacing between the multiple data centers. That's what inter data center connectivity. So those can be accessed, you can, by using the Sunstone is one such web interface. See, here we usually call it as a openable instance, as what, a zone. And there are two types of zones. One is called as a master zone, the other one is a slave zone. Master zone is obviously term, as the term says, it is a central connectivity, central model, is the central control over the different kind of slave zones, where those slave zones are the one which are